Hey, what's going on, everybody? We are here at Broken Gears Airsoft, only 15 minutes late for the broadcast. Do we have any viewers yet? Let's refresh the stream
God, I
on the
hope
other
not.
link. Oh, there's two waiting. That was
That's
probably like
Jesus.
4 in the morning numbers.
Two waiting.
Don't you people have something better to do with your fucking time?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. What top tier gun were you talking about, Evan?
Oh, so there was this Chinese knockoff, and the translation, I don't know where they'd gotten it from, but it was for like an AK-47. But the description of it was the world's first mentally challenged rapper.
What? Yeah, I just because obviously certain languages, there certain similar words just mean. Like, I remember I had a Turkish professor who explained that the Turkish word for turkey sounds nothing like turkey the animal.
Right.
And it's like, what Chinese sentence or name or whatever words, combination of words strung together makes sense that it comes out in English, in a late 2000s fucking horrible internet translator as mentally challenged rapper.
How many times did they have to run that through Google Translate for that to come out that way?
I'll tell you, years ago we used to get the unicorn hobbies, the UHCs, and they came with a little like safety pamphlet, for lack of better words.
Oh,
And it was like, don't point at your eye, and one of the things was don't point at the creature. And like, which creature would that be? Like, I confused. And they had one that was something about forced air projectile BB danger. But that was it. Like, it wasn't explaining that it was the gun shooting. It was just, you should be aware that forced air BB going to cause danger. And so, of course, we had a really good laugh about that. I think Josh might still have the original Point of the Creature pamphlet.
Do you remember, Mike? Was it the Marui safety pamphlet where like the guy is accidentally shooting the dog in the ass?
Yeah.
Dude, I love that.
And like the dog looked really horrifically.
Oh,
horrified.
dude, the dog was not pleased.
Oh God, it was pretty cute.
Well, with that out of the way, I guess tonight we're here to talk about world building in Airsoft, gentlemen. This is an episode that I've been looking forward to for a while, to the point where I planned for 3 or 4 minutes. I think it was early yesterday morning. And I'm just going to leave it straight to you guys. How do we want, and taking sort of a moderating role, how do we want to start this up? Evan, you prided yourself on not having any notes because you don't need them earlier. So why don't you do the first 5 here?
I don't need notes because I can't write, but I mean.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, well, you don't need to write ops. Yeah, you don't need to.
Nobody can read anyway.
You don't need to see colors to design posters for national games, and you don't need to write to design ops. Yeah. So, what do
American versus Russian? That always works out well for everybody.
All right. Yeah. So, Evan, why do you introduce us a little bit into creative writing and sort of world building of this flavor or a more general flavor, and how we can apply it to an airsoft game?
Well, I think the first thing you would have to say is for people who maybe aren't familiar with that term, I don't know how common that is outside of faux creative types, but
people building worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, world building is the concept of creating either a fictionalized real world setting, like a historical drama where the individual. Pearl Harbor is probably a good example of that. A lot of shit that happened in the movie Pearl Harbor did not happen in real life, or Saving Private Ryan. D-Day happened, but there was no guy that Tom Hanks was based on. Or you're doing something where it's completely fictional. That might be a fantasy world like Game of Thrones, where there's very specific rules to how that fantasy world works. It might be largely realistic, save for a couple elements like the example I usually use is the Ace Combat games, where it's like, yeah, okay, there's fighter jets and stuff like that, but there's also these giant super jets and stuff, which aren't real, but they're part of this semi-fictional uh, back or setting where uh, it's close to the real world, but it's not the real world. So world building is just creating an environment where the events of whatever you're doing are going to play out. So what that means for airsoft is I think, I don't know if it's Lion Claws or Milsim, one of those. I know they've created like their own fictional countries at one point or another, basically just to avoid what we've talked about in the past of, well, we don't really want to glorify the Taliban or ISIS or whatever, so we're going to make up this fictional terrorist group that the guys who pay us an extra $50 to play Americans can go shoot at. That's kind of like the entry level aspect of world building where it's just like, okay, well, there's this fake country and they had a coup, or there's terrorists there and you have to go shoot them. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think for a lot of games, that's kind of about the level of buy-in you can get from somebody who just wants to be there to shoot stuff. Um, but I know Mike's mentioned some of our more role-playing adjacent games or LARP games like Snow Dreams or Bitter Harvest, where there's a much larger focus on role playing as opposed to uh, just shooting everything in sight. And I mean that's not unlike reenactment to a certain degree if
Sure.
you're doing something historical. But if you're doing something like we usually did, your character in that Bitter Harvest game or Snow Dreams or whatever is functioning within a entirely fictionalized environment, um,
Yeah.
in a country that doesn't really exist. Is that good?
Yeah, I suppose.
That'll
Good,
do,
Matt,
Mike.
because I don't
That'll
need your
do.
approval.
Okay.
I think that one of the things that you have to keep in mind is, depending on what kind of genre of gaming you're pitching, be it a mil sim or a LARP or whatever you're doing. Balahack right now in down in Virginia is doing like this whole. They've been doing it for years. The whole Rev series, which is like a post-apocalyptic, and like the dudes come out with like full on like lost in time Mad Max shit, and it's really cool to see, like really really neat. I've always preferred the LARP aspect to Milsim personally, um, more so for the interaction. You get a chance to kind of see like how creative people can be. We've done a variety of different styles of games based on a heavy LARP aspect where our staff members became embedded players and they were the vendors or the banker or the food guys, the bar team, depending on how far down that thing you want to go.
Sure.
It's pretty awesome. So like when you go out and you see these big games and like Valahek puts on a pretty good show. He does Rev, and there's another one he does too. That's a very LARPy style game. I don't know how in depth the background is. I know that for the Milsim series that we ran, with Rochambeau being the country we fought in, I mean we got pretty crazy towards midway through it. I think we had maps set up. We had oh Jesus, Evin did the whole back culture for it, which was still probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, ever. And I'm 51 years old, for fuck's sake. It literally was just it gave in so much flesh work that you could work from. The last couple of years that you guys were running the games at Red Book, you guys did. Evin was doing all like the news blurbs and stuff prior to the games. So you'd have kind of like oh, this is why we're going to be in XYZ land doing XYZ. And I think it really helped some of the players to really kind of get into it. Again, it depends on what your target audience is. If you're doing like a heavy LARP, you got to have people that want to LARP. If you're doing heavy milsim, obviously you want to kind of do heavy milsim with people who want to do heavy milsim. So it's you have to know the target audience. I think we've talked about that numerous times ad nauseum. But I think that once you have that kind of set up for it, the background and whatnot, people really get a kick out of it because you can really get into your character and start to assume that, like, your character's backstory. You can get into why are you there fighting, who are your friends, why are your friends there, like that kind of whole aspect. And it's interesting to kind of build the world up so you can do that.
100%. To Mike's point, and just to a little more clear, to elaborate a little more, when I was posting up on some of the various Facebook groups about this show tonight, that just for some idea for everyone of how deep we dove, if one will, with the Rochambeau stuff, which was our fictional country for a series of years across a few fields that we
17.
that Evan and
17.
quite a few other folks, 17 years, Jesus Christ, or 17 fields,
17 years.
um, just which we literally made up to give give our events and our games more context. Evan chiefly, but I think you had some help, but I'll credit you all but in total tonight. Came up with things like a website that looked just like a semi-legit like National Archive. Mike mentioned a Facebook page he ran, a literal fake like news outlet Facebook page that would have posts go up daily, often, that would relate and lead up to a particular game. And that was just to name a few. We had a lot
Really
going
cool.
on.
I think just going back to the whole Milsim versus LARP thing too, you don't necessarily have to go to the lengths that we went to for Rochambeau to get people invested. Even in a Milsim game, I mean, if you're not doing just straight up historical stuff where it's all based on reality, you even if you're doing something as basic as, hey, there's 3 different divisions of the military and one wears this camo and the other wears this camo and the third one wears this camo, you can at least hope. I mean, I know camo is a touchy subject because you can never get anybody to coordinate green versus tan, let alone matching pattern. But um, it's one of those things that
What's multicam again? It's tan when you want it to be, and it's green when you want it to be.
it's but it's only the bottoms. Tan. It's only the bottoms, and if you're in town, everything's reversed.
So. Right. If you go to town, then you're on the green team. That's
and if you have an M203, then you're whatever team you feel like.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that, like I said, you don't have to go that heavy into it to get some aspect of world building involved.
It can absolutely be as simple as one little scenario within our world or another one.
Yeah,
as to why the red guys are fighting the blue guys. I mean,
I think
it honestly becomes world building venture on some level if you go get past 4 sentences of meaningful fluff on your Facebook event page. I mean, that's all some ops do, and it really feels like yet another day at the paintball field when you show up. So I guess they're kind of partaking, but basically skirting the line.
Well, and I mean, there's a certain level of world building that you can do that it doesn't matter if the players don't buy into it. You could come up with the most elaborate backstory possible, and if the guys who roll in are all wearing multicam and they look like they just dropped out of a Navy SEAL recruiting ad, and that doesn't fit your world that you've created, whatever you've done, it doesn't matter at that point. I think with good world building and the right group of people who are interested in the world that you've built, you can get that buy-in. There's just certain times though you just, it doesn't matter what you do. Guys want to play Navy SEALs shooting terrorists and recover the nuclear weapon that they've stolen, and that's it.
Always a man-portable nuclear weapon, of course.
Oh yeah.
It's always broken arrow.
It always looks like somebody's dad's broken water heater from 1965.
I thought you were going to say empty DeWalt case, but I guess that's a little too upscale.
well, I mean, coffee can, whatever.
Mhm.
It's always
Propane
eminently more
cylinders.
portable than a nuke would be. Um, but it's let's assume that you have the right guys, you have the right backstory that people are going to buy into it. The question you have to start with, I think, with world building is what what do you want to do? What kind of theme do you want to have? Is it going to be very gritty and realistic? Is it going to be, semi-realistic with some fanciful elements? Like I said, Ace Combat's a good example of that. Or do you want to just be completely over the top? Like we had a GI Joe game one at one point where
Yeah, you let me in that one.
there was a supercomputer that was taking people over and controlling their minds. There was guys dressed up as Keel Hall, like or uh, whoever the sailor was, Shipwreck.
You mean Jimmy?
Shipwreck. Yeah, Jimmy was dressed up as Shipwreck.
That was
But
awesome.
I mean, that was a game that was just like everybody knew where it was coming from. They knew it was going to be ridiculous.
Right.
Um, but there was still world building involved there. I mean, there was a computer super AI from the actual show that was involved with that called Watchdog Blue, and it was marginally based on the show, and that was the decision we made. We were going to do an over the top world for that particular op. A Command and Conquer themed game would be fairly over the top. A Fallout game would be very over the top.
Be fun though. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's one of those
Hypothetically.
things, like, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna run like a high end LARP setup, you can really kind of take out, all the stops and just go nuts. Um, the Bitter Harvest we've talked about in the past game was originally done by Hive Mind, who's now part of the Gravy Seals. And we were talking one night, and I'm like, hey, I'm running out of ideas to do cool guy shit. Can you help me out? And so he's like, yeah, I got a couple op plans I've been tinkering around with. Let me shoot you one. So he shoots me this Bitter Harvest off, and I'm like, whoa, like this is a lot. Like, can we even do this? Is this even viable? Because he needed to have flowers, he needed to have a monetary system, currency, he needed to have vendors, he needed to have a central bank with a banker. Like, he had all of these things that he wanted to add in, and I'm like, literally, this is hurting kittens, dude. Like, I put the tan guys in front of the green guys and let them shoot it out. And he's like, yeah, but I think this will work. I'll bring some of the guys from the LARP. He runs a LARP called Nevada's, and he brought a bunch of his LARP guys out, and they helped us run it. And honestly, having guys who had done, lightning bolt LARP as opposed to pew pew LARP, which is what I still think Airsoft is, it was really cool because these guys had experience in dealing with being in character the entire day. There's some video still on YouTube. I ran across Simon rolling around in the mud for his 200 Roshan bucks. And I was dying. I'm like, because at the time I was dating a girl named Casey, and Casey made him do it. It was hysterical. But yeah, it was nuts. Like, everybody came out, and I did not expect everybody to really stay in character. I did not expect them to run with it all day. And they ran with it all day, and they ran it in character, and they loved it. Now, not everybody had a good time, but the guys that came out with an open mind had a blast. So I think that a lot of it depends, again, back to your target audience. But that said, I think that anybody who can come out to a game like this and have fun, the back building is where the challenge really is. When we first started doing Rochambeau themes, we were still out at Big Necks in Franklinville, and I think we had maybe 25, 30 players, maybe. And I needed to have a backstory. So I was like, the night before we were drinking around the fire, and one of the kids said he'd Rochambeau me for something. And I said, what the hell's a Rochambeau? And he says, well, I kick you in the nuts and you kick me in the nuts, and whoever stays up, wins. And I was like, that sounds like a country we should have. And he was like, what? And I'm like, Rochambeaudia. And he's like, I love it. So it kind of stuck. I'm not saying it was the best creative outburst I've ever had in my life, but it was a good starting point. And so as punishment, I made that team carry a giant wooden crate around that was filled with broken toilet parts and some rocks, some bricks, a bunch of dirt I chucked in there. That thing had to weigh about 150 pounds. And I made him lug this up and down, back and forth the field about probably 12 times. And for some reason, they thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You like carrying heavy shit around? I'm on to
We can
something.
facilitate that.
So then my props just got bigger and heavier, but I digress. The premise was that King Fudigar, who was I think actually a reference from Shrek, if I could be mistaken, was assassinated in country, and we had pitched the whole, instead of doing like good guys versus bad guys, we did rebels versus corporate, and the corporate were better funded, had all the cool stuff like I say cool stuff. They had the golf cart. And so, of course, like, well, in a 30-person game, man, the golf cart was a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So we let them have the golf cart. So the corporate team came in and they had a golf cart, and we gave them like extra saws or something. I can't remember. And so, they had better funding, and the rebels were kind of a mismatched group of kids that didn't really all have camo. Wearing jeans and like had like really old like M85 jackets and stuff. It was entertaining.
M81, Mike. Oh my
M81.
God.
I'm sorry. I don't know. M85. That's from Aliens. I don't remember. So, in any case, that's how it started for us, was the Rochambeaudian theme, and then we kind of just put everything through Rochambeau after that because it was just easy.
You had it. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a handful of ops that were like Black Hawk Down, where we had 3 teams, and we had a Deeds guys, we had civilians, and we had the Americans. But the American team was always lopsided, heavy, because everybody wanted to be the good guys.
Yeah,
So
we've
that was
talked
kind of
about
fun.
that before, and that's kind of the part of the reason you guys got away from doing stuff like the nom ops and
Yep. Yeah.
stuff like that. It's because everybody wanted to be Rambo, and
Right.
um,
And nobody wanted to be the poor indigenous people that were getting killed by Rambo.
yeah, exactly.
Get out of my country. So yeah, I mean there was a lot of that happened, and then from there, like we all kind of built on it and ran with it. Hive Mind gave us a lot of really cool ideas over the years that we took and we ran with. I mean, I don't know how many bitter harvests we ran, 6, 7. I don't even remember. We ran them at like every field we had. We ran them at Hunters Creek initially. We ran them at Mission City. We ran them at the indoor place a couple times. We ran them out at Red Brook.
Frankly,
I ran an op at the indoor place in Rochester, like, and it was all based on Rochambeau. So, we always had different places to play, and but it was all based loosely on Rochambeauian lore.
Cool. Okay, so that was, I guess, a pretty good look at what this bullshit is, and in a general background. And what I'm about to ask, you guys have touched on a bit as well, but I figured we would veer further into that direction. And that comes to really just the getting into what it's going to take to the how. So how we want to create a world for an event. So what kind of how do we decide how deep we want to go? Do we want to make something just like a little fluffier than the red guys fighting the blue guys? Do we want to invent our own country and 200 plus year history going back to the barely post-colonial period, well, before the post-colonial period? And that, do we want to do something in the middle? How do we talk to our clientele beforehand?
No.
No,
it's not.
I agree. So yeah, what do we? What first? If we're committed to, building a world for an event coming up, what are we doing?
I think that at one point in time, Evin had said something about wanting to write a backstory. I could be wrong. Maybe did I ask you? I don't remember.
No, I
think you just did it.
I just came up with it, and I was like, because you had told me about Rochambeau. I'm like, it sounds
this might be kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
So I had no idea that Evin had spent as much time and energy, and like honestly, like the read is well worth it if you want to read something that's completely weird. Not weird. It's actually really well done. Like if you were to read this online without any context, you would think this is an actual history of a real country in Africa.
You had someone who did once, right? thinking that it was weird.
I had a guy in New York City send me a thing wanting to know more information about Rochambeau because he couldn't find it on any maps. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, so I'm doing my thesis in history, and your country fits the criteria for what I need. And I was just kind of like, is this somebody fucking with me? Like, and he's like, no, for real. And I was just like, guy, I've got bad news, man. Like, your thesis is literally on a fictitious land. You need to stop and rewrite on maybe Cuba or something. And yeah, it's D&D character sheets, yeah,
100%. Yeah.
and like literally, it's really really funny. Oh, apparently me and Evan are quiet compared to you, man. I mean, I don't care. I just let you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. There was
Um,
an artillery barrage in Evan's neighborhood, so I had to turn him down a bit.
oh, okay,
But
that's fair.
you sound better than me. All right, you're both up a little.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
I
in
just turned
case-
it back up.
there you go. So, like, I think that a lot of it came back down to is like, Evan took the thing by the reins and just ran with it and did such a beautiful story. We had kind of talked about like what we thought Rochambeau would look like numerous times over while we were camping, and usually some of us were drinking, but not Evan, because he's a good man. And so, like, the rest of us would be half in the bag talking mad shit about how Rochambeau and Highlanders were the best. And Evan's like, well, okay, why? And people would ask, like, well, why do you want to be part of the Verdi Highlanders? And I'm like, well, have you read the backstory? And they're like, well, no, not really. And I'm like, oh, read the backstory and you'll figure it out. So we had a lot of fun doing a lot of different character, basis on that. Even up to Redbrook when we did the election and we had Juka get elected, and then we had the Queen's, the King's daughter show up in the giant fluffy dress with her axe and kill him. That was fantastic. Some of the best, stage play I've ever seen in my life. It was, it was ridiculous. But we always tried to have fun with it and try and do different things that were based in actual, historical possibilities. We've done a couple of different elections where we had the UN come in with their blue hats and ballots, and you had to go, try and stuff the ballot box and, get your faction's leader in. And like, that was just unbelievable. The first one when Remy threw the road flare in there, it burned the box. Oh my God, that was great. But in general, like, we've done a lot of things. I think the tank won the last election, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like the Cruise tank won the election. Nobody else wanted to vote for anybody else.
I don't think its term is even up yet. I don't even know. I don't know where it is, but its term isn't up yet.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that a lot of the whole like wanting to fill in the backstory probably comes from like me and Evan playing tabletop games when we were younger, like Dungeons and Dragons and BattleTech and stuff like that. I think that a lot of the need to flush out the backstory, I guess, comes from that.
And you know what, Mike? In retrospect, that's probably my one regret about Rochambeau was we did not have a phone company with its own personal army.
Yeah, we were missing out.
Yeah, that would have been.
We fell short on that one.
That would have been great. But I think that again, going back to the basics of it all, you're playing D&D, you had to kind of think without seeing per se. Nowadays they have terrain and they have these little figurines and stuff, but when I started playing, like, it was all paper and pen, so you didn't really have.
If you were really fancy, you had a couple Grenadier miniatures or something like that.
Yeah, I remember those. I had a bunch of them, but yeah, it definitely is kind of funny, like, to see like kind of how the brain works and how it processes and wants to set this thing up. And again, probably a good half of the players never cared. And the other half either jumped into it full throttle, embraced their inner Rochambeauian, character, and ran with it. I know that. I'm trying to think. I hate to say his name because if you say it 3 times, he shows up and drinks all your beer. But Ruvan really embraced that completely. And then what's that? Don't. No,
I said I tallied it so
one time. And then I know that other guys really got into the character aspect of that. I thought that was pretty cool. Like, seeing guys like, showing up in the same set of fatigues throughout the entire couple seasons, because their character didn't have a home. So they couldn't just go and change fatigues. So they always wore the same ones, even if they got ripped or damaged or whatever. They still showed up in the same outfit, same gun, and I thought that was kind of a nice touch. I know John was definitely into the Rochambeau history. John from Rock Air. If he's still
Here
listening.
tonight, as far as I can tell. Yeah,
Yeah,
still
he's
here tonight, as far as I can tell.
still in there. Like, mad props to you, dude, because like even after we stopped doing Rochambeau and stuff, we did another op, and he came out and he brought probably one of the funniest things that I had heard. He brought like I think it was Hanoi Jane or Hanoi Hill,
Oh
whatever,
yeah,
and he had it broadcasting on a big speaker, like a portable speaker, and was just jamming it out. So we'd be having a firefight, and in the distance you'd hear this, vaguely Asian person screaming, something along the lines of "Go home, Yankee. We don't want you here." And I was like, "This is awesome! Like, thank you for this." Like, it was a really cool touch. But again, it's getting into the character, I guess, more so than anything else. But
So going back to what you were asking, Mike, or Matt, of the how, I
yeah.
think
What do I put on the marker board that I'm not broadcasting?
I mean, I can only really explain it using the example of Rochambeau
Mhm.
in this context, but I think the first thing you got to do, and people aren't going to like this answer, but you got to be able to read a fair bit about actual history,
yeah,
um, because you can, if you read enough, honestly, you can make a fake country,
pretty easily. Yeah,
basically by just ripping off certain elements from different real world countries. Um, or just even not even necessarily specific countries, but just kind of patterns of uh, history, like
colonial expansion.
correct colonial
Yeah,
countries that were then influenced by the British or the French or the Portuguese or the Dutch or whoever, and or the Spanish, how that played into their development as a country, and you know. You might look at certain it's if you want a kind of a shortcut, you can go towards those almost exaggerated examples of countries like North Korea is like the top tier turbo hyper crazy example of an exaggerated country, but even something like the United Arab Emirates, where it's basically just a hereditary monarchy with hyper capitalism, and nobody cares because the welfare state's so good that they just
yeah,
kind of lay back and enjoy it. Um, but I mean, that you could create a country with a lot of elements of the UAE, for example, very easily, and kind of meld it to whatever you're trying to do with whatever game you're doing. So there's, like I said, if you read a lot or even read a fair bit. Um,
Yeah, I'll go. I was going to say earlier, Evan, I'll go ahead and define a fair bit as literally like two decent sized, reputable books on a part of the world that's at least like somewhat tumultuous. So you have a little to work with. But like, we're not
yeah,
asking you to go back to school here.
no, and I mean, I think I was a little better prepared for what I was doing, just because that was something I was already interested in, so I had already read a fair bit about that. But I also had the benefit of being able to go to college for political science, so I read a lot about international affairs as a result of that, and that opened me up to new things like um, another good example is Thailand. Thailand has
yeah,
been at least when I was in school in the early 2000s, I think Thailand had been a country for 50 years and it had had 51 coups.
I
So
mean,
it
that
had
seems about
had
right. Yeah,
basic. I mean, you even look at them now. I mean, I think they had one 2 or 3 years ago where the military was just like, nope, we're having a coup, we're taking over, we're running the country again. Um, Thailand's a really good example of a country where there's a very set pattern of how things go, and you just kind of, if you read a little bit about that, it gives you plenty of ammunition. And that was one of those countries, Thailand, Nigeria, a couple other ones that I had learned about in comparative government class in college. That, if I hadn't taken that class, I would have probably never even thought of those countries as fodder for world building. I mean, obviously, the actual real world is quite tragic, but from a uh, storytelling point of view, truth tends to give you a lot to work with, and I think sometimes the tough part is that old saying of truth is stranger than fiction. I think it's kind of a meme now, um, from like the battlefield games, but there is actually, for example, a documented instance during the El Salvador Civil War where a guy with a Dragunov sniper rifle, through partially skill and partially luck, managed to kill a pilot in an A-37 Dragonfly close air support plane with a sniper rifle.
I remember hearing about that.
If
I don't think you've ever told me about this.
if you would, if you put that in a movie, everyone would just kind of roll their eyes and go, "Yeah, okay, sure."
No,
Yeah,
really,
there's no fucking way that would ever happen. And you have to be careful in not making, even if it's based on a real event, not making things too over the top that where they
Right.
don't
Don't lay it on
seem
too thick.
believable.
Yeah.
And if you can kind of toe that line between entertaining and realistic, if that's what you're going for, and like I said, that's kind of what I can only speak to because it's
What
how
we
I
did, yeah.
like it's well, and that's how I like my backstories. I like stuff that's within the realm of possibility. If one or two things had gone slightly differently, or there's a plausible reason that something could have happened. Um, so I like I said, I just kind of circling back, is if you read a fair bit, um, that'll give you a ton of ammunition for, or you don't even have to lift stuff straight from a particular um, history. It just might spark your interest and go, oh well, what if this had happened, or what if this had changed, or that reminds me of this idea that I had for something else, and maybe I could tie that in, and um, just going down that path of leaning into the resources you have available to you instead of starting completely from scratch.
Just utilizing what you have available to the best of its ability, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to start complete, I'm sure George R.R. Martin used some aspects of real world medieval um, history and other fantasy realms, but he basically had to start all in large part from scratch for Game of Thrones,
I
I
mean,
would imagine.
well, I'll kind of push back a bit and say that most of the people I know who read him act about him like there weren't books before.
Oh, okay.
So
You know what? And I got halfway through the first Game of Thrones and was so
this is a book review podcast now. You guys don't like it? Fucking who cares?
yeah, I was so unrepentantly bored with it that I was just like, I don't have time for this. So I'm only basing it on the limited information that I have. But um, I think to a certain degree, everybody borrows from Tolkien at this point.
Yeah,
there's
if
really
you don't, you're not writing in English.
yeah, there's no way, no way to get around that. But just to tie that back into the world building, like I said, it's really a matter of um, working smarter, not harder, in a certain sense of just using fodder that's already there, as opposed to doing all the heavy lifting on your own.
Yeah, yeah. You got. I mean, drawing from inspiration is 500% not cheating. I mean, with regard to my my art background. I lost count of how many professors, how many times have told me, like, yeah, don't be afraid to make literally multiple folders of photo references for a project. Every professional artist does this. It's not, play. Well, I mean, unless you're a complete idiot about it. I mean, it's not fucking plagiarism. It's not cheating. What did I say? I'm sorry. I'm not used to being interrupted. I'm used to doing the interrupting.
You're fine, dude. I was saying, it's not plagiarism, but only just
If you
not
could,
plagiarism.
right.
Well, and
But you can't get caught.
I mean, there is in copyright law. Not that I'm a lawyer, but there is a certain element of
You are a
protection.
lawyer.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. A Facebook lawyer.
I stayed at Holiday Inn once.
Where copyright law protects people to a certain degree, I believe. And a real lawyer could tell me if this is true or not, but it kind of protects people reinterpreting. I think Banksy has done stuff with like Mickey Mouse, where he's reinterpreted Mickey Mouse in such a way that it's a fresh piece of work. Granted, unless you're raking in big dollars, like
Nobody cares.
anybody, yeah, and in Airsoft that goes for double. Like nobody's really going to care if you have a the Division adjacent game where it's the Division and everything but name. You're going to be generally okay there, but
Right.
again, it's there's if you're taking certain elements from like especially real world history, I mean, it's fact. You can't plagiarize a fact unless it's an academic paper and you're not citing your source. But
Different, yeah.
that's a totally different from. I mean, you look at a lot of fictional stuff and you go, oh, okay, this is clearly based on something else. Hunger Games. I mean, you could make a very credible case that that's based on Battle Royale from Japan.
Yes, I can remember his name. Yeah.
And you could say Battle Royale is really just a reinterpretation of I forget the name of it, but it's a very famous short story, The Most Dangerous Animal, where a guy's hunted by a big game hunter who's hunted every other animal on the earth and wants to hunt a man.
Wasn't Van Damme in that?
No. That was Ice-T. Surviving the game. Oh, no, you're right. Hard Target.
Hard Target, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
And that was John Woo. I mean, if John
Woo
that
was a John Woo
off, then
the only reason we knew that is there was like 7,000 fucking white doves.
And everybody had two guns.
One for each hand and one for each bad guy.
Mm-hmm. To be honest, for a Van Damme movie, that was a pretty goddamn good movie.
Lance Henriksen was the bad guy. I mean, how bad could it be when you got Bishop in there?
Well, and Arnold Vosloo.
Yeah, that's fair.
I gotta go watch that again.
I gotta watch this. Yeah.
Oh, you've never seen Hard Target?
No.
Oh, it's actually a really good movie. Fucking Lance Hendrickson's Thomas Arms Contender in that.
Yeah.
The single break action.
Yeah, he
rifle caliber pistol.
Drops his giant rhino bullet in there and pops it back up and shoots at you and then reloads painfully slow.
There's the one guy with the air crossbow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
original HPA.
Dude, it's Van Damme has a mullet in it. It's a fantastic.
And it almost looks okay. Almost.
Yeah. And
I've 100% seen this poster. I was thinking of another one, but okay,
it's
all
into
coming
his
into
terrible
place.
accent by making Cajun.
I'm Cajun. No, you're not, dude.
And
trust me, you're not even remotely.
You get to see Wilford Brimley try and pull off a Cajun accent too.
Yeah, that was also painful. Like I think actually that hurt more than Van Damme's rendition.
Yeah, that's a good movie though. There's a lot of good shootouts in it. Because that was the point where John Woo had really perfected everything from Hong Kong that he had done. And there's actually one particular shootout in that movie that he had basically taken directly from Hard Boiled because he didn't like exactly how it had turned out in that, and he redid it. Anyway, veered far off course at this point.
I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying it, but okay.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, if you want to keep talking about Hard Target, man, knock yourself out.
We can make a whole episode about that. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, I'm done for movie reviews. Depends how long you want it to be. I mean, we can make a whole episode out of anything we want.
I mean,
Yeah, sure.
I think
There's
I think we
there's
should
no
do
contract that says it's a 1 hour show. It could be like 59 minutes once in a while.
we should
Oh,
do a
God.
whole episode on Comstar, whole episode on the Steiners. You know, there's a lot of
the periphery states. Yeah.
I always like
Yeah.
North Korea, but what the hell do I know?
which
Oh, the
clan
Great
is
Death Legion.
the stupidest.
Jesus. Comstar, I think to a certain degree. would
They
be
weren't a
my number
clan
one
though.
choice. No, but they made some horrible decisions.
Oh yeah, I did see a great meme though. It was it was a screen cap from the BattleTech cartoon show from the
Okay.
Oh,
early
hell
90s.
yes.
And it's
Remember
it's
that.
like the main Jade Falcon guy, and he's like, inner spheroids are weak and cringe. And then it's the AT&T, it's the AT&T girl, Vanya Weintraub,
Oh, Jesus.
and she's doing like the making a very serious point meme, and it's like, my brother in Christ, you literally lost a war to a phone company.
That's pretty awesome.
Hmm.
When Ma Bell kicks your ass.
Oh, dude, space AT&T.
This is a BattleTech lore show as well,
Yeah,
if anyone wasn't aware.
Yeah. We don't care about that. We have our own war from it.
Yeah, speaking of world building,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all
What kind of
jokes
mech can I
aside-
dress up as at your op, Evan?
all jokes aside, man, BattleTech probably has, if you're somebody who likes invented and complex worlds,
Yeah.
BattleTech has a phenomenal backstory that they haven't retconned it and changed
Nope.
a bunch of stuff or
Yep.
switched things around or rebooted it or any of that stuff.
None.
Judge Dredd, I know, that's a
Judge
personal
Dredd is
favorite of
great,
mine.
too.
Judge Dredd, with the exception of the IDW comics, where they rebooted it based on the 2012 movie, has a remarkably consistent backstory
Right.
to it.
Don't they literally progress in real time still?
For the most part, I mean,
Yeah. Oh.
that series ran once a week for ever since the
Ever.
70s. Yeah, since the
Ever.
70s.
74.
I have like the first 20 volumes, and I think I'm up to like the late 90s of the collected Judge
The
Dredd.
case files?
Yeah, the collected
Yeah,
case files.
I have 2 of those.
It's but that's another one that has fantastic world building.
I got the best of Judge Dredd about 4 or 5 years ago. The one, it's about the size like a smaller phone book at a library book sale for like $3.
Oh, dude, and that's the Judge
Barnes
Dredd.
and Noble like new condition as well, which basically means that it looks like it's been in Rochambeau for 6 years.
Yeah, it's been dropped 30,000 times.
It's still sold at sticker price. Yeah,
There's some
darkness.
And Judge Dredd and BattleTech to a certain degree are tough too, because there's like, there's so much stuff you gotta read to be current on it, and B,
and we've discussed the perils of reading as an airsofter.
Yeah,
multiple shows now. Yeah,
this is assuming you lose your mind and decide to read.
Right.
Or,
yeah.
Nobody's looking, so you can get away with it. But it's tough because those have so many tertiary characters and secondary characters and offshoots and tie-ins and stuff. Like BattleTech has the whole Grey Death Legion series.
Their story's epic.
And then it has the
Caballeros, the Snords Irregulars.
Well, you have like the 21st century Centauri Lancers.
Oh yeah.
You have Comstar. You have all the major houses who have two names, which is fucking infuriating.
Only if you're trying to read it.
Yeah. And then you have the whole Warrior trilogy and the um, like the whole Dark Ages. It's just
Yeah.
like there's so much to absorb with those. And same thing's true with Judge Dredd. I mean, there's so many large scale um, story arcs in that. Even in the first like I think 10 volumes that I've gotten through. There's there's the Robot Wars. There's the Judge Cal saga. There's the Apocalypse Apocalypse War. Um, there's the whole Judge Death Part 1.
Arc, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Comes back and there's the whole arc with Judge Anderson where she becomes a major character.
Mm-hmm.
I
have a collected. I was reading one of those the other night.
Yeah, if you enjoy those, Matt, and Mike for that matter, Humble Bundle.
Oh, cool. There's a deal on them?
At least once a year, we'll have like the first 5 volumes. Like I bought one not too long ago where it was like the first 5 volumes of Judge Dredd, all of the Judge Anderson, a bunch of like the collected story arcs from some of the newer stuff, some of the IDW stuff, and then a bunch of tertiary 2000 AD.
Huh.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I've got like the first 20 something volumes of Judge Dredd, all the Judge Anderson, a bunch of the Judge Death arcs, a bunch of the IDW stuff, and a bunch of, like I said, a bunch of other 2000 AD shit. I paid I think $30.
That's kind of cool.
Nice.
Though.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's neat to see. Again, like I love that kind of genre of stuff. Like for me, like the first world building experience in books that I read was probably Dragonlance. Mm-hmm. Followed closely by Dune. Two different genres, yeah.
Wingman.
But, Wingman series.
Wingman.
Yeah. But that said, a lot of the stories that I grew up with were based on that, like the Wish Song of Shannara. Like I can't even remember all the.
Oh God, Wheel of Time.
Yeah, Wheel of Time. Yeah.
Can I tell you? And Matt, you'll enjoy this.
Are you going to review the Amazon series?
No, I was just going to say I know you like it because it's got Rosamund Pike in it. But my dad was a voracious reader for years and years and years and years. I cannot tell you the passionate hatred he had for anything Robert Jordan. He fucking hated Robert Jordan. He's like, this stuff is so boring and so derivative. I fucking hate it.
That's funny.
He was funny though. He's like he really liked the Lee Child books. Okay. And he read those like years and years and years and years ago. I don't know if he's kept up with it, but he loved just like Terry Pratchett, which I know are super popular.
Well, he can be good.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's another guy he's like Stephen King. I mean, he's
right.
He wrote so many fucking books that it's
just pumped them out once a month or whatever. It was insane.
Yeah, there's no way they can all be good. But yeah, I always remember him being like, "Oh, Robert Jordan, I don't know why they keep letting him write books. That stuff is such shit."
Yeah.
Would have we dipped down at least supposedly to 0 viewers for a while, so that means the book reviews are starting. And we'll get back to world building. We'll play it by ear. So, what have you read lately, Evan?
Right now, I'm just finishing up a book on the 1904-1905 Russo-Japanese War, which I knew nothing about.
Does it at all concern battleships?
Yeah, there's a fair bit of naval aspect to it, but um, the Russians were so incompetent with their use of their navy that like it really didn't matter that much.
So it's kind of like modern history.
Oh yeah, I mean it
Well,
was.
no, that's really amazing because of what a I mean, well, you were talking specifically in the context of the Navy. I mean, how much was the Russian Navy involved? And well, it's just amazing how little, or was it even worse? And did they learn that much in time for World War One? Because I mean, obviously, World War One wasn't the Russian Empire's shining moment, was it?
Well, I think, and this is
Because like,
kind
I
of
mean, and that shit happens, but like to have a
well,
war within a decade prior and to have learned that little, like what was the deal there?
a lot of it was um,
This is a
the
60 minutes episode. I call it 56 minutes.
the
I'm
Russians had
pretending I read books.
a big problem even in '04 and '05 of discontent where a lot of people were starting to get really pissed about the monarchy. And so they were trying to deal with that at home at the same time as they had all these basically illiterate serfs who were conscripted and used in combat. And at this point, everybody really thought very little of the Japanese. You know, everyone was like, "Oh, once they meet a European army, they're going to get their asses handed to them." And this is kind of the point where the Japanese really started digging into that sort of bonsai bushido um,
Mindset.
martial society, um, and moving from there onto especially by World War II, just being very 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 committed to fighting. Um, I picked up what else did I get? Oh, you know what I actually read? Um, I read an Osprey book, which the only reason I did that was because I was able to borrow it through the library. Um, Otherwise, Osprey gets $0 from me because are fucking disgustingly expensive for what they are. Um,
The illustration's always meticulously correct, I mean.
uh, Generally, although I'm sure you'll both laugh at this, I have one of their ones on South African Special Forces from like the late '80s, and the pictures in that are very much stylized, or a little bit of fantasy to them. Um, but I read a book on the armies of the Ukraine war um, up until I think like 2017, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. Like there was a um, Russian astroturfed uh, unit for I think it was the Donetsk People's Republic. It might have been the Lutansk, but it was the miners division that was created entirely out of coal miners.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of similar to SS Polizei in World War II, that was 100% drawn from German police. Um, and there was just a bunch of interesting stuff in terms of uh, just like very strange equipment that guys had, or units that were, technically part of the Donetsk People's Republic, but was in actual fact basically just, well, this is the fourth division of the Donetsk People Republic, and it was actually like, the 533rd Motor Rifle Regiment of the Far East Military Division of Russia. Like it was just this papered over uh, use of Russian troops, and like I said, just a lot of strange um, equipment. Like I have one picture of there's they're like militiamen in Ukraine, and like one guy has multicam, a couple guys are in civilian clothes. There's another guy with like an ACU top, and then a guy in full pencot camo.
Yeah.
Like it's just weird shit. Those are probably the two most interesting things. There's a lot of interesting stuff from Hellion and Company though on Kindle that you can get really cheap. Like I just picked up Israeli Air Force operations in the 48 War and during Suez.
Hmm.
They're kind of like Osprey books, but they're bigger and cheaper. I
Doesn't
also
get better
picked,
than that.
yeah, I just picked up one as well from them on the 73 coup in Chile for a couple of bucks. Um, what else did I get from them? Like I said, their shit's super cheap if you get it on sale. Um, Sometimes it's stupid expensive, but like these were I think $3 a piece, which I'm not gonna get angry about that. I'm in the middle of Hannah Ardent's Origins of Totalitarianism, which is supposed to be like this seminal work on how authoritarian governments rise, but it's a slog. It was written in 3 parts. The first part in the 40s, the second part in like the 50s, and the third part in the 70s. So like the writing style changes significantly over that time.
Hmm.
So I got to get back to that at some point. But anyway, that's what I'm reading.
Cool. Mike, you also know how to read. Anything good?
Sure. All right, so I'm reading 2 books right now. One's a science fiction, science fantasy, I guess, from Jeff.
Yeah, we're by no means limiting ourselves to history because I'm going to tie this all in. So keep going.
So Jeff Rodhoff wrote a book called The Name on the Wind, and I'm working through that. And I'm also reading How the Irish Saved Humanity, which I think was intended to be written as factual, but comes across more as satirical. But I digress.
Well, I mean, isn't that phrase in and of itself slightly tongue in cheek?
Yeah, I mean, I'd assume so, but how do I know? Yeah, my stepdad Bill sends me some of the most fantastic books. He gets all these crazy, one-sided historical books that are borderline not
Bill
real.
O'Reilly's killing
Yeah, like
Hitler.
literally, it's like Bill O'Reilly of Poland wrote this book, and it's fantastic. And it's literally like, hey, in Poland, like, we did this and we did this, and it helped everybody out, and like it's good and it's fun, but it's also kind of terrifying. A couple I just finished a book on persecution of the Jews post World War II throughout different countries, and that was an interesting read.
Oh Jesus! I'm sure that was a light reading. I'm sure.
Yeah, I got cancer from it, and no, not really. It was really interesting to read it, but it was also kind of like, okay, I guess. But it's very in depth, right? So as you read through the stuff, it's it's a lot of like, on this date in this street in this town.
Oh yeah.
So and so said this word, and then you're like, okay, and apparently that was the beginning of race riots in Poland. The correlations are pretty jumpy, but I enjoyed the books a lot because it's always something interesting, But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Cool. I do actually have a go ahead, Mike. Finish up, Mike.
Sorry. I'm also finishing off one of the what do you call it? Dune books. I'm reading the Dune.
Oh God, which one? June or
Mentats.
Dune?
That's
the one his
cool.
kids did, not the not
the original ones.
Yeah, not the original.
Dune, Vapor's Journey.
Yeah, pretty much. The Tale of Two Sands. How sand gets trapped in your shorts. Like it's got a whole weird thing. It's weird.
Yeah,
They're covering everything. Yeah.
I hate sand. It's rough and coarse.
The softest sand, my lady. I don't know. I think that's one of
it gets everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm a desert creature. Loud explosion.
Right. No loud
things of that nature. Loud what explosion?
worm explosion.
Worm explosion, right? Yeah,
it's dune, man. It's
or worm side.
That's fine.
All right, so we do have I have a book review, and then we have a question from the audience from John, actually, friend of the show. If you guys weren't aware.
Oh God, somebody actually had a question.
Stop talking so I can review my fucking book. Now,
Nobody cares.
I've recently finished reading a book that I had owned for about 15 Christmases, unlike many others I have. The Terrible Hours by Peter Moss. If you guys are familiar at all, you can use Amazon, and if not, it was about a submarine that went down. It's near Portsmouth, somewhere in the Northeast. I don't know. Northeastern people all look the same to me. So, it was just before World War II. I'm so bad with fucking timelines because we also learned through grade school history. Oh yeah, in grade school history class, you don't need to remember dates. Just focus on the material. Like, okay, well, what subject is this again? Geometry.
Yeah.
But it was just a ways before. I think right before World War II had started. They had been in the middle of the salvage portion of the operation, but it was about what's credited as the greatest submarine rescue in history, and that, to my knowledge, it was the first successful one in water of any meaningfully dangerous depth. It's about
39.
Thank you. Yes, follows a guy named Peter Swede Momsen, or Charles. Who am I thinking of named Peter when I read this? Because I've fucked that up with that particular name multiple times. He was a naval officer who invented the Momsen lung and this sort of Jules Verne-esque diving bell that was lowered down to these sunken submarines in order to get the guys out. And it was just a fascinating look at the process and just how agonizingly, this sounds like something you can make a movie about, and this actually has been adapted into an NBC TV movie you can find approximately nowhere, even for sale. But you would think that, okay, they sink this fucking thing, dock it, go. But no, we're talking about in 200-ish feet of water, they were able to, I think if they were hustling, get because it was strung along a line, not just sort of hoisted up and down. Right. You're talking about a trip of something like 40 something minutes each way. It's like, just talk about a nail biter, if one will. But it was. Question, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you say hustling...
For something smart alecky, I'm going to be mad because there's something else cool I really want to talk about.
I was just going to ask, when you say hustling, does that mean like they were starting their own like essential oil company?
No, MLM? But in the same way that you have to grind a lot when you do that, some different mechanical parts ground against each other. But no, it was just there were just some really vivid passages describing things like nitrogen narcosis. There was one bit about a diver who had to do something as simple as basically attaching like a ball valve to a threaded piece of pipe or something. I don't know if they were blowing the ballast tanks or trying to unflood part of the deal or what, but he had to. I'm mixing up two passages, but these were definitely both in the book. One diver, I believe, had to just continually, it was literally a matter of getting somewhere and screwing something on or unscrewing it. I mean, this was not a particularly complicated task. There were some parts of the book that talked about a lot of complicated stuff, but this wasn't one. And that there was one passage where they talked about a diver who had to continually repeat to himself what his job was or what his immediate task was because of how much the nitrogen narcosis and the lack of clarity of thought at that pressure was doing to him. And again, we're talking 200 feet. I mean, you hear about these, under the sea sci-fi movies. They talk about depths and a couple of kilometers. How even Cold War submarines dove to 1,400 meters wasn't terribly odd or terribly uncommon, right? Eli, yeah, another friend of the show. Eli's here. Yeah, we talk about a lot of parts screwing around on this show, and but yeah, it was just really cool to learn about what an ordeal these operations really were, and there was a fun bit where, in order to sort of keep everyone as level-headed as they could and just to minimize stress on the divers and stuff, they would blame any kind of problems on the gnomes. the underwater gnomes that were fucking with everything that the divers had to do. It was a running bit of the whole dive team, which is pretty funny.
Well, it goes back to like the Gremlins thing from the airplane in World War II.
Yeah, that was their gremlin. Yeah, 100%.
Apparently, in World War II, there was a lot of supernatural shit going on.
Right, yeah, I can only imagine why. But yeah, great little read. Remarkably easy one, too. I finished it in the span of a week and change with I get a 1 hour break at work, but I'm still on. That's faster than I've finished any book previous in 6 months, going back years. So,
well, yeah, it's written by the guy who did Serpico. So.
Mm-hmm. Another one, Evan, you'll like, because not unlike 6 Days of War, you can still find the C-SPAN book TV upload of a 1 hour interview with the author, which is a good listen. Anyway, yeah, so we just to rain on anyone's parade who thought we were completely into the bullshitting phase, we were genuinely sort of gathering over. I was inadvertently sort of diverting the conversation so that we could look at a range of different examples of your source material. As we heard a couple minutes ago, we are by no means limiting ourselves to historical work and things of that sort. So it's really the sky really is the limit in terms of your premise and your presentation of your event. And it's all about having fun and making something cool that you and your friends want to do something with. Now, unless you guys had anything further briefly on that point, I was going to finally take our question.
I was just going to say that's actually a really good point of what you just said. Of don't feel like you have to be hostage to any particular theme or level of realism. If something's cool and it sounds like it would be a fun game mechanic or world mechanic, just do it, man. Don't get too hung up on the idea that, oh, well, that doesn't seem really realistic, or that doesn't really fit what I was thinking of originally. If it fits what you like, add it in. Don't get so tied into a particular way of doing whatever it is you're trying to build that you're afraid to change directions.
That said, though, if anybody does an Aturo game, I'm not going. I'm way too old for that shit.
A what game, Mike? I can hear you.
An Aturo, one of those anime ones where they run around with their arms put out behind them. Yeah.
I tell people to do that as soon as I give them a grenade.
Naruto, what is it called?
Naruto.
Naruto.
Right, yeah. Naruto, yeah.
Naruto, yeah.
You run around dressed like a penal legionnaire from Warhammer 40K, and
I'm good, man.
Someone gives you an Enola, and you attack things with your body.
2 jewels, one in each hand.
Yeah, those are the support ones that flank out. All the other ones carry the Enola, not the smokes, the Enola bomb or the explosive grenades, frags.
Right.
I know there's a word for grenades that explode. All right, so into our question, which is another really great one from John of the Rochesterian realm. So before we get back to we're finally back to world building, the main premise of the podcast tonight. How do we straddle the line of referencing or taking inspiration from current events without being tasteless or inappropriate? I have a very definitive answer, and I do try to keep my strong opinions to a somewhat minimum on this show when we're talking about anything remotely serious. And it's that you fucking don't. Okay? Draw inspiration from current events, at least in as much as you can. Here, we don't. No one. Who is it? Was it Josh Warren? One of the guys who runs Milsim. Whoever did was Milsim West the one they did the Vice doc on fairly recently?
Oh God,
it was like late 2020. But like he was given the briefing. He was talking about political shit. It's like keep your. I know we just had an election, but keep that shit to yourself. No one here wants to hear about it. I mean, kind of a lesser but similar situation here. I mean, there's a couple thousand years of history, arguably, you could pull from, at least in a vague sense. You could theoretically even, base the politics in a lowercase p, or the battle tactics, or just the general cultural situation on an event as far back as the ancient world. Okay, I don't want to hear about. I can't believe it's not Russia and Ukraine fighting. The end. You guys are welcome to disagree, but I really don't see kind of it's one of the there's such a thing as situations where it might not end bad, but nothing good is likely to come of it, and maybe it can only possibly end bad, or it might not. You might break even, but there's little chance of it going well to a point where perhaps only bad can come of it. Especially from the perspective of running events in any kind of like semi-business context,
Evan,
or even.
you want me to go?
Go ahead, Mike.
I had a rule of thumb that I didn't do anything that was less than 30 years old. So Vietnam was fair game, Korea was fair game, World War II was fair game. Everything else had to be fictitious. Like I wouldn't, we did Black Hawk Down. That was probably the only exception, and only because it was so publicized. And unfortunately, that movie was so ingrained into our local airsoft culture.
Not to interrupt, but thanks, by the way, Eli. It was Milsim West that they did the Vice doc recently.
Yeah. The biggest thing, like, I always try to stay away from anything current, because first off, most airsofters are under the age of 30 for the most part, except for some of those old fucks driving around. But for the most part, it's all younger guys at the time. And I didn't want to have anything that would trigger anybody who was involved in Gulf War or, like any of that stuff. And we did a lot of work with the guard guys, and some of those guys served overseas. And out of respect for them and what they saw and did, we never really brought anything from that era in. Not that it would have been a great time. I think that, a lot of the original Gulf War would have been a fucking riot to do. I don't know how you'd find enough people to put on one team to be the Royal Guards, but generally speaking, we tried really hard to not do that. So I don't know.
Okay, so not tooting my own horn, but this is you're largely making my point in a similar way. Or we're in agreement honestly, at a worst case.
Just out of respect for the people that might have actually been there, done that, I didn't want to bring any of that into play. And sometimes, and I really feel that if you're pitching a Ukraine-Russia game right now, it's probably in poor taste.
Yeah.
Not so much that I have anybody personally that was involved in any of that, but I know people have relatives who were there. People have family that's from both sides of that conflict.
Sure.
And I would never want to put them for to be uncomfortable.
Right.
That's it for me.
I agree with both of you guys. Like, it doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
But just from a alternate point of view of another reason not to do it is, I think current stuff is generally not well researched enough.
It has limited potential from
for you to really know how to represent it. That is true. Eli brings up a good point. We did do a Lebanon game, but if your average person could name anyone other than the Israelis who were involved in that conflict, you'd be lucky. And Lebanon, frankly, was skirting that Vietnam era. But for me personally, modern stuff and imitating real world conflicts that are either just finished or are still ongoing is kind of boring to me. Like that, you can't come up with something more inventive than that.
That's what I was getting at too. Like you can sort of poke holes in the logic behind going this route from completely selfish perspectives. There's people.
And that's
whether they have anyone affected by things going on or not. Even if they don't, they probably don't want to hear about it. They're here to have fun and vibe out. As you said, from a historical standpoint, you don't know enough to really sort of flesh out any kind of serious event beyond, these guys were this camo, these guys were this camo, they're fighting right now.
And at least based on what's being presented about the Ukraine war right now, who is going to want to play the Russians? And if there is somebody who wants to play the Russians, do you want them at your field? It's like asking if well, we're gonna have a bunch of guys who are SS, and somebody enthusiastically signs up for that. I don't want them at the fucking field.
Hmm?
I mean, that
You
might
know?
be a good litmus test to get rid of people you don't want to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, and there's
Right? Yeah. It could be like
the SS one is
a stakeout game.
is
A
almost
sting, a sting
yeah,
op.
yeah. The SS one's kind of a joke too, because we actually did have a guy who wanted to play SS, and he got lit up real bad, as he should have. And
He was
there's
a historian.
yeah, it's okay. He was a historian, so that negated all problems with that.
Yeah,
And
runs a
even
museum in his basement.
even with historical stuff, I think what is the context of if we were doing not that anyone would ever want to do this, but if we're going to do a Cambodian Civil War op,
Right.
is it going to be two opposing sides fighting each other, or is it going to be the Killing Fields reenactment? That's two very different
Possible interpretations of that
groups of
conflict.
people and viewpoints on the world. And if you're having a Killing Fields op, count me out. I don't want to fucking come to that.
Yeah.
Same thing with World War II. Are you doing a Eastern Front, or are you doing an Einsatzgruppen, round up all of the partisans and shoot them? It's just or whatever. There's a certain element of sensitivity that has to play into even something that's historical in any way, shape, or form explicitly. You could do an op based on the Syrian Civil War, and if it's called something different, and you have different groups involved, and you take the ISIS or the religious elements out of it, nobody's probably gonna think twice about it, and nobody's gonna care. But if you say, yeah, we're doing a Syrian civil war, and these guys have to play Shabiha, these guys have to play ISIS, these guys are playing the resistance fighters, these guys are playing the Kurds, and somebody else is playing the Russians. Again, there's a lot of people who are going to be involved in that game that I don't want to be associated with. So I think just to get back to John's question, it's taking inspiration from elements of current events.
Yeah.
As long as they're appropriately camouflaged and used in such a way that it's respectful to what's actually going on, I don't think anyone's going to get upset. It's when you explicitly come out and are like, this is a Syrian civil war game, or this is a Ukraine game, or this is this, or you get real world in groups. And even if you do something like, wow, this is a Rochambeau game, but these guys are going to play the Kurds, you're already veering into very dangerous territory for a number of reasons. And that's kind of my viewpoint on it. But really, truly, I think you have plenty of stuff to work with without going the Law and Order route of ripped from the headlines episodes, and it's just I don't know, it just feels lazy.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. For me as well, anyway.
John also had that question about incentivizing players.
Yeah, okay. Does anything further on that, or should we move right into part 2?
Oh, I can throw a few things on that.
No, I think he meant about the tasteless or inappropriate.
About our current question. Yeah.
No,
John asked 2 separate questions, so if we're all done with this one, we can move on. Cool. Yeah, on to the next one. So yeah, what I think he was getting at here is, how do we encourage players to get involved and take ownership, as you've chronicled a couple cases, of the setting and enhance immersion and role playing overall. Mike, want to start this one up?
Sure. So in a lot of the ones that we've done we had the Rick Rochambeau and stuff, we always kept in-game currency. Sometimes it was used in games, sometimes it wasn't, but it was always there. People always had Rochambucks for reasons. They were kind of pivotal to the Bitter Harvest. We used them in Snow Dreams. We used them in, I don't know, everything. And depending on the event, we'd have somebody as a banker. So you had to use your in-game currency with the banker to get more props for your team, basically more points. So instead of just using American currency, which is to me a little overplayed, but again, each to their own. See somebody, he still got out 10K in Rochambucks. And like the poppies, and we had like the blood diamonds the one year. I can't even remember all the crap we put together. Like we literally just would come up with a concept, run with it, and it just took a life of its own. But in order to kind of maintain and keeping that that kind of like interest going for the player base, having these things in there was definitely a boon because it made it easy for us to, oh, you want to be in Rochambeau? Do you got any Rochambucks? Oh, you don't? Then you've never really been to Rochambeau, have you? And then everybody's like, oh, where do I get Rochambucks? And we're like, this is just such an awful scam, and I love it. So, basically that was kind of one of our hook, line, and sinkers to get people in. We've done things years and years ago when we had the Western Airsoft League, as it was back then. We had league IDs that gave your affiliation. Does anybody remember those besides me? It's awkward. Okay.
I've heard of. I remember hearing about them, but
yeah. So we did actual IDs, like honest to God, like.
Well, that was mine. My screen name right now is what it was on the old NIL.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, I always went with my last name to make it easy, and not my real last name at the time, although it is now, which is even weirder on so many levels. But yeah, so I think that was definitely kind of something that we kind of embraced and ran with to try and make it something more, add more depth to your experience when you're out playing with us. Was kind of give you things that were, along those lines. We usually gave the Rebels green because green stuff was cheaper and not everybody could afford to get multi-cams when we first started doing it. So people in multi-cams became the corporate because they were better funded. Was the storyline. Separation of rich and poor people, I guess. But it seemed to work and everybody had a good time with it, so I don't feel too much guilt. But yeah, I think that a lot of times you have to kind of give the immersion factor, a little nipple twist to kind of get people to really, get into the character roles that you're setting forth. OD life. Yeah, everybody had their own little thing that they did for it. There was a group that ran CAD-PAT, I think, at one point in time. There was, Tiger Stripes were really big for a lot of us for a long time. And then we had the multi-shams that we got from China that were never quite right. I'm trying to remember what else. I mean, it's, you give each team kind of their own feel. So, when a team came out and expressed interest in becoming like regulars for the games, was it like EO or the Phoenix Mercenaries or SOD or whatever, they all had their own genre of like what they were imitating. And then from there, we kind of like catered to that a little bit. And then we would put teams that were like-minded together so they could do their thing. It was interesting. That was my computer. Sorry.
No worry.
Yeah.
I got to run, but I will say the power of a good fake accent
pays dividends, 100%.
Goes a long way into getting people immersed in the game.
Yeah, I've Mike. I think you told me you might have some plans later too, so I don't mind closing it up right about here.
Yeah, let's call it a night tonight. We can pick up if anybody has any ideas for things they want to hear us talk about.
Yeah, and I wasn't very clear, at least publicly, that this is 100% our first serious like multi-part series. I know we've even touched on some topics already before, but we definitely want to talk more about the world building aspect of the hobby and how much we enjoy doing that. Because I think it's something that a lot of, as I join some of these larger national and international airsoft groups on various larger social media platforms, I do see that there's not only a lot of people running stuff that could benefit immensely from viewing things through this lens, but also a real appetite for it from a customer standpoint. Again, just based on the posts that I'm seeing.
I think that it's important.
Not that wasn't news, or not that was news to me to begin with. What with the 70 and 80 man events we all ran multiple times,
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, I think
this is going to be a fun series.
To give people, some feedback, some what worked for us, what didn't work for us, things to think about, because sometimes people just don't think about these things. Game designers focus on different things. They focus on the mechanics of the game, or how does the medic rule system work, or how are we going to make everybody go here when we even go here, and they kind of forget about why are they going there,
missing the forest for the trees, if one would.
Yeah, exactly. You can't
get it because we run an outdoor airsoft.
Yeah. You're fired.
Cool.
All right. Yeah, this is a good place to stop. Thank you guys for coming out and joining us, as always.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Always appreciate it. I think we hit one of our peaks this today. At this view count is always low, and it got up to 4, so we might have had 5, 6, 7 guys at one point. But I see some of our semi-regulars who haven't been around in a while made the time to pop by. Really appreciate everyone doing that.
Absolutely.
It also tells us that our notifications are working, because I was not exactly publicizing the shit out of this particular stream. So yeah, I think things are trending in the right direction, and we still got a lot to say, and we got some fun plans for expanding soon, and we will keep you all apprised of them. But for tonight, this has been another Broken Gears Airsoft broadcast, and if we don't see you for the next one, we'll see you in hell.
All right, that's where I'll see everybody I know.